Welcome back to the BookEnds YouTube channel. I am James McGowan.
I'm Jessica Faust.
We are literary agents who have taken our popular blog to YouTube to discuss all things publishing. And today we're talking a little bit about how you can become a children's illustrator. So there's a lot, which means
I'm so excited. This is all you.
Right, which is why Jessica's so happy because I have to talk the whole time. But we've done a lot. I mean, our whole channel really is dedicated primarily to authors on how they can make a career out of this. And I don't think we ever really did a video on how can you start out as an illustrator, right? There's a lot of advice on the channel that can apply to illustrators who are already in the industry. So I wanted to do a video where we talk a bit about how you as an illustrator, an artist, can set yourself up to break into the publishing industry and to illustrate for children and adults. I think a lot of this is applicable to both. So I'm likely going to talk more about children just because that's, I think, where a bulk of the business is for an illustrator, and also I tend to work. So if you're interested in illustrating children's books, I think the first thing that you need to do is read children's books. So the authors get all this advice, usually the same, but you have to decide what you want to illustrate, whether there's a lot that you can do, right? There's board books, which are, do we have an example of a board book? We do.
I do. Do you have one?
Board books, which are literally made of board. They're usually the younger audience, the kids, they bite on them, you know, they have a grand old time. The words are a lot less words, and the illustrations are usually a lot simpler. So this is Baseball Baby by Diane Adams and Charlene Chua, which is a BookEnds client. Anyway, so there's board books, there's the standard picture book, there's chapter books, which are, there's more words, usually in black and white, sometimes in color, though that's a lot rarer. There's middle grade, which is usually black and white illustrations, and there are graphic novels, which I'm sure you all know. So you have to get a sense of the market. You have to get a sense of what types of books are illustrated, what are the kinds of illustrations that are in those kinds of books, and then how can your style sort of parlay into that, right? Where do you see your style fitting? So I think that's the first place to start. And I think this is also a process that you're doing forever. You're never quite done reading and market researching to see what is coming out in the illustration space. But it's the first place to start so that you know how you can start to build your brand and develop your portfolio, which will be your next step.
Well, and I think illustrators, like authors, you know, have to also pay attention to the market and trends, because it's very similar, right? Your style or what you do, you know, do you do a lot of people? Do you do a lot of animals? Are you better at things like trucks and cars? Well, there's going to be trends in picture books too, right? Where maybe this year it's a big truck and car buying time, and maybe, you know, next year it's more graphic novel-y, I don't know. But, you know, so you need to know that, because you need to, well, I know you're going to launch into the portfolio, but you need to build your portfolio with an eye towards what art directors are looking for based on what's coming out today, not what was published 6 months ago or 6 years ago.
Yeah, your portfolio is going to be a website space that I think it should be a website space that you own. And it is going to showcase your best work for the type of work that you want to be hired for. So if you want to do graphic novels and there's not a single sequential, which is the panels and, you know, speech bubbles, if there's none of that on your portfolio, it's going to be a lot harder for people to visualize and sort of feel that you can do a graphic novel justice. So you want to put that on your portfolio. But this is where you're putting, like I said, your best work. It should be a website page all to its own, and it should be a good amount of images. I would say at least 12 to 15 images that highlight your best work. And if you want to draw flamingos, there should be a flamingo on there. If you want to do graphic novels about like fantasy, you should have some fantastical type images in there. It has to be almost directly indicative of the kind of work that you want to do. And that can be across genres, age groups, and formats. So it's totally fine to have a portfolio that has a lot on there, but it should all be your best work, and it should not be the static, stagnant page.
Yeah. I mean, it should be updated regularly, right? But also you should diversify, because, you know, I think, and that doesn't mean you have to have graphic novel art on there if you have no interest in doing graphic novels, but you can't have 5 shots of the same pig.
Right.
Like,
You want to have different types of characters. If you're doing a picture book, if you want to be a picture book illustrator, what I would recommend is having animals, have animals that are animals that might be anthropomorphic, which means that they are a bit more humanized. If that's the type of book that you want to do, a lot of people don't, which is totally fine. But having kids, I think it's incredibly important to showcase diversity in your illustrations so that you're not drawing all white characters. Um, um, Settings is really helpful, like trees
mm.
and different types of weather. Um, I think it's great to show indoors and outdoors. I think it's great to have just different scenes really of the average life that a kid could experience or reading picture books, and if you see there's a lot of books in the jungle, maybe drawing a picture of a jungle, right? All of these different types of settings can be a really great way to diversify the type of work that you might be considered for. And if
And
you're not sure how, like, where to even start, look at some very popular illustrators and their websites and see the types of diversity they have in their images and their scenes.
and I don't represent illustrators, but the one thing I will say about the BookEnds illustrators that I've noticed, and especially those who seem to be getting deal after deal after deal, is that the images they're choosing to highlight on their website and that we are then going forth and highlighting when we're reaching out to people is that each image tells a story on its own. And I think that's really important in the picture book space because that's how children first read, right? They don't read the words. And if you hand a book to a small child who doesn't yet know how to read words, they can tell the story based on the pictures. And I find that the illustrators I know I connect with, I can look at one image and have a whole story. And we've actually had situations where an illustrator based on an illustration was bought by a publisher, and then the author was brought in to tell the story based on the illustrations. So I think that's super important in this world because that's what an art director is going to look at, somebody who can create a story with one or two images.
Well, it's the idea of having things feel flat versus having active images. And I think having an active image that feels like it has a bit of life to it is
Mhm.
is what's going to give you that storytelling quality to your art, which is
Mhm.
what people are looking for, right? Because even though there is text in a picture book graphic novel, we are still looking for images that complement that text and that bring something. The best part of a picture book is when the illustrator comes in and just does something that we probably never expected, and it's that collaboration that really makes something shine. So I think having that storytelling quality to your art is going to take you super far in
Mhm.
children's illustration. um, your next step, once you've got a portfolio, once you've figured out who you want to be as an illustrator, I think it's really helpful to start building a platform. The one thing I want to
I
know.
think this is one area that this is super important, more so than authors, unless you're a nonfiction author.
Yeah, I do want to note that a platform is not essential. I don't think you have to have hundreds of thousands of followers. That's not what I'm saying. But I do think it's, illustrators without platform get work all the time. But I do think it's important to have social media that you're posting actively on and you're posting new work on, because social media is where the reach is. With a website, you are kind of hoping that somebody just stumbles upon your website, which is hard to do if it's not being put out there. When you have an Instagram, if you're making videos on TikTok, if you're posting, there's a lot of other art share websites. If Twitter does a bunch of art shares, there's a huge Illustrator community on there. If you're not interacting with that community and getting your name out there and pieces of your art out there, people are never going to find that website. So I think it's important to consistently post work on social media and engage with your audience that you begin to develop and engage with other illustrators who have their own audience that might boost your work. I think creating that online community is what's going to get your work in front of the eyes of art directors, editors, agents, people who are going to social media just to see what they can find or who are already on social media that might stumble across your work.
Well, don't you find that most art directors who are looking, you know, they get material from agents all the time, but don't you find that a lot of art directors who are looking to discover somebody new go to Instagram first?
It depends. I think it really does depend on the project and what their necessary, like their community of art being shared with them is. But I think they're on Instagram. Everybody's on Instagram, right? So if an art director is on Instagram and something comes across their feed, they're gonna bookmark it. Or if they search kid lit art and they find something that they love, they're gonna bookmark it. So I don't necessarily know that they're all rushing to Instagram to find the person that they're looking for. They do have like catalogs of people from art agencies and literary agencies and postcards and all of that stuff. But I do think that there are instances where they're on Instagram and they find somebody, or they specifically do go look.
Right.
I don't think it's the only way people are getting hired, but I think it's just worth, even if it's an accident, it's worth being on there.
Also, I know you have an opinion on this. You said posting consistently. Give us a number.
Yeah.
How consistent is consistent?
Oh my gosh. I think, and I don't know if a lot of people are gonna love this, I think 3 to 4 times a week. Um, if you're not posting that regularly, especially on Instagram, right? Instagram has been deprioritizing photos and prioritizing video. It's been a lot harder to break your post out. I think if you're the less that you post, the less the algorithm is going to prioritize your post. So I think the best thing you can do is consistently post something. It can be like a progress sketch. It can be a picture of out, like it doesn't have to be your art every single time. I think at least 3 to 4 times a week will at least keep you on people's feeds and in their algorithm.
Yeah.
I know authors and I mean illustrators who post every single day. It's a lot of work. I'm not saying it's not a lot of work, but it's crucial to keep yourself going. And then using hashtags, I think those are always helpful. If people comment back, that drives engagement, and then the algorithm will see, oh, people really like this. Let's boost that even higher. So
And
being
go on.
no, I was to say being on social media just a little bit every day can really help grow your platform.
Well, I was going to say too, illustrators don't have to be much different than authors, right? You could do an unboxing video.
Yeah.
You could do a new contract video. You could post, since we're talking about Instagram videos, you could post you creating something work in progress kind of thing. You're illustrators, you're creative. Think outside the box. It doesn't always have to be a new piece of art, because part of it, what you're trying to do is getting that constant content out there. I think what I'd like to do is, maybe if you wouldn't mind, we could post some of the suggested hashtags
Yeah, we can put them in
down
our,
below,
yep, we'll put them in. Let me make a note to give that to Madison really quick.
because you had mentioned kidlit art, which I think is great, but I think giving some hashtags that illustrators can use.
Yeah, and we'll also link below our BookEnds Illustrator website so that you can, our BookEnds Illustrator Instagram, and also our BookEnds Illustrator page on the website. So you can take a look at what our Illustrator clients are doing on social media, how their portfolios are looking online. I think it's a great place to start. We have a large number of illustrators on our team now, so I think you have plenty of options to start that research.
Yep, that's great.
The next thing that you can be doing to break into the industry of publishing, which I don't think a lot of illustrators know, is that you can query literary and specifically book art agents.
Yeah.
You can just write a letter that says, you're not pitching a specific book, but it can say, my name is XYZ. I'm an illustrator. I would love to illustrate these kinds of books. Here's my portfolio. I would love to speak to you about representation. Something that simple, sending it the way that agent receives queries, that's a query letter. And that's a way to express to that agent that you are interested in representation, you are serious about children's publishing, and it could be a way to find an agent. I think a lot of illustrators will post or create a portfolio and then just expect someone to find and discover them and want to sign them. You can be active in this process just as much as an author, and I highly recommend it. I recommend looking on Instagram. There are a ton of art agents on Instagram. Finding those agencies, see who's posting art that you think your style fits in with, and reach out. The worst they can say is no. Maybe they don't answer, but at least you tried.
And what I've noticed at BookEnds is that, it's really easy to decide quickly if you connect to somebody's art or not. And what I've noticed here is that if an agent gets something that they don't feel they connect with, they often will quick pop it up on Slack for the rest of the team in case anybody else is interested, because it's really easy to pop up a piece of artwork.
Oh yeah, and everybody loves looking at it too.
Like, yeah, we do.
Yeah, it's like a nice break. Like, sure, let me go look at this portfolio for 30 minutes instead of doing.
I even look.
Yeah.
I even look, and I'm not going to take on any illustrators, but I love pretty pictures, and I love.
Who doesn't? Who doesn't?
Yeah, I love sometimes I even go to our own illustrators' websites. Sometimes I'm just looking for artwork for my house. I'm not gonna lie. I'm like, I wonder if this person does anything that I should buy and hang on my wall.
It's true. Yeah, and that's a great thing about illustrators is they do sort of build out a business on commissions and all this type of work, selling prints, stuff like that. So, and
Yeah.
it's not just book publishers that are going to reach out to you too. You can hear from, merchandising companies, people who are looking for art for promo. A lot of people might reach out to you, ask for a commission piece to give for a gift. You might get commissions in very different ways by being
Oh,
on Instagram and social media in general. So, okay, our last tip is you have to keep posting and you also have to keep making new art. Which once you finally do all the work, you create a big portfolio, 12 to 15, maybe more pieces, and you're like, cool, I'm done. I don't think you're ever done. I think you get better when you keep doing it, right? Just like anything. And I think it's crucial to keep posting new stuff and keep your followers and your platforms kind of intrigued and looking at new stuff. And you have to just keep making new art. Just like
yeah.
an author would keep writing a book, if you stop, you're gonna feel it.
And I want to add to this because we did discuss how consistently to post on, let's say, Instagram. But I think we need to talk about the website too, because an art director may come to your agent and then may go to your website and like your stuff, but feel like it's not right for this book. And if they try it for the next book and it's always the same pieces, they're going to stop coming.
I would say once a
So,
month.
yep.
Once
Yeah.
a month, look, see, did I create anything in the past month that would make a good addition to my portfolio? Or am I look at your portfolio and say, did I create anything in the last month, or have I gotten better at any skill in the last month that one of these images is not highlighting? And you can remove that. So I think it's really crucial to do a little audit. And it doesn't mean that every month you're creating 12 to 15 new pieces and completely replenishing your entire
Right.
portfolio. I don't think that's necessary, but I think it's that constant care. This way, every 6 months, you don't have to do that. You don't have to
Yeah.
sit down for 3 weeks and create new art forever just to make a whole new portfolio. But I think doing that monthly audit where you're like, okay, this is better, this is worse, I can fix this, let's update that, or just want to add to it,
Yeah.
it's gonna make your life super easy. And you're doing that work anyway, right? Like you're creating new art, so get it up there.
Yeah. No, I think that's really important.
Yeah. But I hope this was helpful. I need a drink. Like my mouth is dry. I hope this is helpful for any artist or illustrator who wants to get into book publishing. Leave your questions below. If we can do more videos on illustrations, we will. And don't forget to like and subscribe.
Thanks, James. Bye.